Good. I don't have any conflicts of interest or any financial relationships to disclose relative to this topic. To get started, I joined full-time the U of A CompE full-time in 2016, and to really spend a lot of time building curriculum and content. But during that time, before and when I started, I'm really passionate about equity, diversity, and inclusion, and was able to get looped into the efforts on women in medicine and science. And that's sort of the perspective that I hope to bring to everyone here today. What's really important here in this slide is we hear a lot from women faculty at CompE and Banner. And, being a woman myself, a lot of this resonates with me. Over here to the right was an article about women in COVID. But while these are comments that are really common and were amplified during the pandemic, I think it still mirrors a lot of our feelings and a lot of the statements that we make as women and mothers and wives, as academicians. And that is, we're really exhausted. We want to climb the ranks. We want to be successful, and we're struggling with a lot of challenges. Working at a campus that I think really values women in medicine, it's a great opportunity to really move the needle. The outline that I'm going to cover today, I'm going to give you just what is the current status of women in academic medicine at the national level, and I'll give you some snippets of information at CompE. I am in charge of analyzing that data and gathering that data, and it's something that we've been working through, and I'm really excited to be able to share some of that with you guys. And if you have any questions, I really welcome the input, because the more input that I get from the audience and other faculty, it really enhances the types of questions I can ask the data. We're also going to cover, why, what might be holding women back, and what can women do, what can we do for ourselves and for others to help support their advancement and growth, and then what can institutions do to contribute to our advancement and success. And then the last point, which is just not a big focus of this presentation, is how do you approach equity and salary. So here's the group that I'm privileged to be a part of. This is the Women in Medicine and Science. Here at the helm is Dr. Amelia Galatano, and she spearheaded this. It's been a distinct privilege and pleasure to work with her, be mentored by her, and learn from her. In the back is our new leader in charge, Dr. Taban Hale, and there we have Dr. Reed, who is just really a fantastic support, and we're very grateful for. I want to give a little bit of history about WIMS at CompE. As many of you guys know, the medical school was started in 2007. I'm going to fast forward to when we hired Dean Lucio, who could come on and lead the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, went to Amelia Galatano and said, hey, I'd like for you to really spearhead this effort and get it going. Take it from an informal, casual gathering of women faculty and make it formal and structured and outline strategic plans and a roadmap for how we can tackle this topic. That's when I got looped in. My outgoing chair, Dr. Diana Petiti, is very passionate about this, and she was requested to come in April 2018 to help formulate and work with the committee to put together a strategic plan and idea. She was like, Pam, you need to come to this. I want you to come to this. And when I leave, I want you to stay. And it's an honor to be serving on this, because I feel like I'm carrying on the legacy of Dr. Petiti. In 2019, Amelia took on the official role, went from interim director to official director. And in that time, we identified 3 key subcommittees. The one I'm going to really talk about today is the status of women in medicine and science, which we call STAT WIMS. And the intent of this committee is really to identify the current status at CompE and investigate the causes for and reasons for disparity between male and female faculty at the campus, and then come up with strategies to address it very proactively in a very active way, not in a passive way. So in the time, we've put together a really impressive committee structure that represents both basic and clinical sciences. This is a photo that was taken at our planning retreat right at the beginning, right before the pandemic. But here are some of the key committee members that we have on the executive committee. It's not exhaustive because it's evolved some, but these are a lot of the original founding people for the executive committee. And the vision of WIMS and our mission is to find innovative ways to highlight, showcase what's going on, and find innovative ways to provide an environment, a supportive environment, an encouraging environment, an empowering environment, an informing environment, so that we can ensure the advancement and leadership and success of women faculty in all roles at ComP. And I have to say, again, having been doing this for 4 years, we've really moved the needle a lot farther than a lot of our counterparts. The goal for our subcommittee, which I serve as the chair, I overlooked that, so I chair the Committee on the Status of Women in Medicine and Science. The goal is to gather data on female and male faculty at ComP and generate annual reports on what's going on. And, well, you know, so I'm a data person. I eat, breathe, and sleep data. So, you know, the questions that I'm looking at here, so these are the top 6 questions that we're working on. And again, any input that you guys have, I love that, right? So, but you know, what are the rates of women at each rank? How have those rates changed at each rank over the years? And putting into place tracking mechanisms so that we can monitor improvement and shifts, and hopefully be able to report back to leadership that we really are moving the needle. You know, other areas of focus that we are interested in that we've not fully dived into is, you know, equity and salary, service distribution, coming up with ways that we can advocate for how to balance that out so that we can still succeed. So what is the status of women in medicine in general, and then at ComP? For many of you female colleagues, I think you guys, I'm preaching to the choir here. We know that women really dominate the healthcare sector. However, we're very few and far between in higher levels, in leadership and in director roles, and in roles that can really make an impact and a difference in decision making. So we've got 16% of medical school deans are women, and leaders at healthcare companies in the private sector is only 4%. So the question is, if we've got 76% of women in healthcare jobs, why are there so few women in these higher level leadership positions? What's going on, right? And as an epidemiologist, like, that's my gig, right? I study what is causing things. And so why are there just not enough qualified women? Well, we know that's not true, because graduates from medical schools or PhD programs are, you know, pretty much 50-50. So we can kind of condense this down to that we have a leaky pipeline. One of the questions that I have in looking at the data is, where do these leaks occur? I don't think you can see my pointer, but where we see where the leaks may be occurring, but why are the leaks occurring at each point? Again, that's sort of my nerdy epi background. I kind of want to know the sources of it. But we've got a decent amount of graduates. Then they go into assistant. They really tend to hover at the assistant level. And then there's fewer at the associate level, fewer at the full professor, chair, and deans are exceedingly rare. So what's going on here? What I'm going to show you here is data in the next half dozen slides are data from the AAMC, which is phenomenal. They have a very large group on women in medicine and science. And so this is the data that they've collated and then report out regularly. And we've done our best to mirror our analysis and our data results to how AAMC is reporting it. But here you can see the latest results in 2018 put women at 41%. And there has been a steady, very slow, but steady incline. Nothing terribly remarkable. As a scientist, I say that that's not a great signal. We're always looking for at least a 20% change. And in the last 10 years, we still haven't seen a 20% change. At ComP, 43% of women, 43% of faculty are women. And I'm really proud to say as a ComP faculty is that rate has stayed steady. So we started out strong and we've stayed strong. And I've looked at that data two different ways, right? So I've looked at the data as any and all faculty, as well as U of A full-time employed faculty, and we're pretty consistent. While this figure here shows, so the top one is the instructor, the bottom is full professor. Okay, and it shows over 10 years that the rate has been increasing. And while that there has been a steady increase over the years, you'll see here that still the vast majority of women are at the instructor level and stay there. So more than 50% stay at the instructor level, and then fewer and fewer at the higher ranks. At ComP, our rate is exactly for instructors the exact same at the national level at 58%. In recent years, that rate has actually increased. I'm not sure if that's because we've got a lot of new hires, but it's become very dominant, and we've not seen a whole bunch of changes in the other ranks. And so assistant professor at 30%, we do have, so our assistant professor rate is lower than the national average, which I would speculate is because we have so many instructors that are not applying for rank promotion or seeking that higher level. And then, the main takeaway here is 1 out of 21 full professors at ComP is a woman, right? So, I mean, that's just 1 out of 20. I mean, we are a minority. Faculty promotions. So here, the top line is rank promotions from assistant to associate professor. And then the green line represents the rank promotion from associate to full. Okay, so there is a very slow and steady rise in rank promotions. But again, like as a scientist, I'm looking for a 20% change to say that that's a clinically significant or something meaningful. And so in 10 years, still only 35% of full professor promotions were women. I have started to dive into this type of data, for ComP in particular. I'm not showing it here today. I'd be happy to answer questions just because it's very preliminary. And then there is just some unique challenges of ComP data that I need to tease out a little bit more. The new hires, we continue to hire more and more women faculty. I definitely see that. We've got our newest Dean of Academic Affairs, who's a woman, which is fantastic. So we're seeing increasing numbers of women. Again, I'm not able to match this with ComP data just because of the complexity of what is required in the data, and it's a bit challenging. Section chiefs, this is really interesting. We only have one section chief, women's section chief or division chief at ComP. This is somewhat similar to the nation, what we're seeing. What's interesting is that even in subspecialties and specialties such as peds and OB-GYN, the representation of women leaders, even in those female-dominated specialties, are still very, very low. And so why are they not, if there's such a high rate of women faculty in those specialties, how come they're not up at the leadership role? And that's an important topic. At ComP, I'm going to just start. ComP, we have 3 women chairs. Of these 3, only 2 of them are interim. So only one is an official chair. The other 2 have remained as interim chairs. While there's been some increase, the increase has only been 4%. And again, I'm always looking for a 20% change. And so we're slow and steady, but we're still a long ways to go. There are a lot of publications that are produced at the national level that address the disparity of women in medicine and science, and especially in salary. I'm not sure how many of those you guys have seen. At the ComP, we actually have a webpage where we list all of these resources to really inform our campus. But the main takeaway from this New England article is there still has not been much change in 20 years. And again, here we go at rank promotion, right? We're struggling at getting our colleagues to go up for rank promotion. This is a challenge that we really struggle with at ComP, and something that WIMS is really working hard to try to address of how can we tackle this. What we're seeing here, and again, you can't see my pointer, but the time from when a person applies for rank promotion, we are taking, as women, we're taking longer to apply. And, I'm just going to say, overall, I mean, the easy, obvious answer is we are like, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready, right? And will I get rejected, right? So there's a bit of a confidence gap between male and female faculty. We kind of sit on our laurels a little bit longer, wanting to make sure we've got all of the items checked off on the list instead of just going for it. And that's something that we need to address. So here again is the national rate, which mirrors that, and same goes for ComP. I'm going to only touch on one slide here on this particular topic, but there is an aggravating factor here for the status of women in medicine and at ComP, and that is the intersectionality of gender and race. So not only are women underrepresented, but we know that underrepresented minorities are also underrepresented in faculty positions. So you combine those two and you almost have a moderating effect between the two of them. So, and I don't have the data up here to show, but at ComP, the vast majority of our faculty are white. About 20% are Asian, and maybe 5% are Hispanic, which is one position that I fill. And all of the other minority groups are actually less than 5%. So we have a lot of room for growth in that at ComP. So what's holding women back? Why are they not? Why are they not going up? And I'm sure a lot of you guys have opinions. Excuse me, but make sure I can see if my daughter calls for an emergency, which she tends to do, which might be an excellent example for what's holding women back, right? Well, medicine is a male-dominant profession, right? So it's very male-dominated. There's a lot of stereotyping. There are maternal walls, and they are inherent biases that have influenced our culture for decades. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the mantle, right? The dominance of conference panels and speaking panels that are all men and few women, and just inherently it has gone into that dominance even in that area. There's less family friendly. I'm a recovering workaholic. So as you guys know, for women faculty, it's not uncommon for us to do 4 a.m. to 8 p.m., right? And we still have, and we still have the expectations to perform and still have our family responsibility. So there's not a lot of flexibility that we can balance the work life. There's also a great inequity in position titles that are given to women, and role and responsibility and position expectations given to women versus a male. And that creates a great deal of disparity. And so it really bogs down perhaps a workload and limits the time to move up. Sexual harassment is still greatly pervasive in medicine. Our medical students see it, our graduate trainees see it, our scientists see it. Myself, I've received a comment where you're not exactly what I was expecting, and that was a very stereotypical type of response. But we're still facing a lot of issues of microaggression, sexual harassment, and that can be really discouraging for women faculty. It's just as discouraging. Promotions in academic medicine, as you guys all know, is centered on funding and publications. What are you doing in research? What are you doing in service? What are you doing in teaching? And you have to demonstrate a certain level of productivity to be able to move up the ranks. If you look at the data for NIH funding, women, despite high qualifications, are not earning the same amounts of grants or publication or manuscript reviews that men do. This was something we definitely saw prior to the pandemic, and then it was exacerbated in the pandemic. There are also fewer women in editorial roles. It's interesting. I'm hosting the American College of Epidemiology this weekend, and the president is a woman. And when we were looking for a speaker, I said, well, let's think about it. And she said, Pam, I want to make sure that we're looking for a woman and ideally a minority, right? And so the more that we can get women in these editorial roles or these president roles, the more you can advocate for that, because those are the ones that can really move it. And so not having that really hurts us. I think one big area is the confidence gap. Women, tendencies to feel maybe less ready. Well, I don't yet have that New England. I need a couple more first authors. I don't have that last place on a manuscript. I don't have that grant. Whereas what we see in a lot of our male counterparts is they go for it and they get it. Right. And so, we're very systematic and standardized, making sure that we cover it sometimes to a fault. Last point, we wait to file for promotion when we know we meet all of the qualifications. And in a survey, men applied when they would meet at least 60%. The last point here, and I think the most important, is the domestic tether. And that is the reality that women do share an overwhelming burden of home responsibilities, childcare responsibilities, and responsibilities that can take away from our focus. Myself, I'm a single mom of 2 teenage kids, and so juggling that is, I get emergency calls a lot in the middle of the day, and you better bet I better answer, because if I don't, they're going to start spamming me on my text, and so and that takes away from the focus, and that makes it a challenge for us of how do we balance all of this and then still make ourselves available for opportunities that can help move us up the ladder. Even surgeons are 5 times more likely to care for a child at home than their male counterparts. There's just a general disadvantage. So we have to come up with ways for how we can offset that disadvantage and still support and help women move up the needle. So the next point, what can we do then? What can we do for ourselves and others? And that is really important and brings us to the topic of what WIMS does at CompE. And I'm really excited to share all of those opportunities for anyone who, and I'd love for you guys to drop in the chat if you weren't aware of a lot of our activities. We'd like to know that because we're always looking for ways to amplify our message and to reach as many women as we can, because we're all in this together and we are stronger together. And having served, Dr. Mallon serves with the committee, and when we have a great group of women at CompE, and we are all 100% unequivocally committed and dedicated to each other, providing a resource, support, and advice and guidance. There is no competition in this group, because we really are in this together, because we know that we're stronger when we come together. So the 4 strategies that our WIMS group tackles at CompE is advocacy. We really do fight hard for women faculty. We had Dr. Galatano and now Dr. Hale, and both of them are phenomenal leaders. If you don't know them, I encourage you to take the opportunity to reach out to them. If you see them at a conference, they would welcome you to go up and introduce yourselves. We take very serious mentorship and sponsorship and finding ways that we can help support our fellow faculty. And this is through a number of efforts, a lot of networking, and specifically in training and development. And we've been able to put together some really exciting activities that we encourage everyone to get involved with. The 3 key subcommittees for WIMS is we have an awards and recognition, programming, and special events. I've already talked about stat WIMS, but I want to point out the awards and recognitions and programming and special events, because those are 2 very dedicated subcommittees that work tirelessly on innovating and finding opportunities and finding ways to really move the needle. So what can we do? And I'm speaking to all of you women right now. Seek out information on hiring and advancement procedures. What do you need to do? This is where the networking comes in. I do it myself, right? Like, hey, this is what I'm interested in. What do you know, a lot of the sort of side chit chat, and just start gathering information about it. And don't be afraid of doing that. Also, what's great and what I look for from my seniors, the women that are above me, is I'm looking for advice, and I seek it out on how to strategically say yes, right? Is this something that's going to be worth? Because I love to help and I love to serve, but thinking strategically of how is that going to benefit me as I want to move up to full professor. So consider that anytime that you see an opportunity presented to you. Very, very important. We've got to sponsor and mentor our peers. When opportunities become available for a speaking engagement, you know, put up your friend, put up your colleague. The more that we get women up to those opportunities, the more their CVs are going to grow, right? Because a lot of those engagements are very critical, especially when you're going up for rank promotion. Find and create peer groups. We have WIMS at CompE. You know, we're really working and trying to tackle ways to really bolster and invigorate a group here at Banner UMC, and as well at PCH and some of our other affiliates. And you know, seek that out. Nominate, don't be afraid to put up female colleagues for awards, especially at CompE. If somebody sends us a nomination or somebody they want to put up for an award, we really tackle it. And we work really hard to make that person successful. We really do. And I'll show you some exciting programs where we've been very successful at. And apply for rank promotion. You know, when I went up for associate professor, it's a very long process. It is time consuming and sometimes arduous. It took me a year to put together my application and my dossier, and I spent a lot of time networking. So seek advice, right? Ask a colleague who just went up or somebody who is above you and say, hey, how did it go for you? How did you tackle this? Because it really is a lot of networking. Faculty Affairs at CompE provides excellent resources for this. But what I found really helpful for me was asking people for like tips and tricks. What was easier? What was harder, right? This is really important. And it's a needle that we're really hoping to move because we're hearing, and again, I hope you guys all feel comfortable commenting in the chat what might be holding you up from going up for rank promotion, but there's not, you know, what we often hear is why? What am I going to get out of it, right? I'm not necessarily going to get a salary boost, so why? Me as an academician, I thrive on excellence, and so I'm looking for the highest level that I can achieve, which is how I ended up with the PhD. I wish they had another one, but they stopped me there. Emily Mallon, She's a fantastic resource for this. I really want you guys to see her as a resource. We know that one of the initiatives that she's working on with internal medicine is actively seeking out people that have been sitting at their rank for a long period of time and actively reaching out to them. And so any of you that have a director role or a leadership role in your division, I encourage you to adopt a similar approach. It's something that we're going to try to amplify across the campus because we think that's a worthwhile effort. And get involved. Get involved in WIMS because we really want you. We want you there. We want you at our events. It's a very inclusive, very welcoming environment. So what are the exciting awards that why we want you guys to nominate yourselves or your colleagues? ComP, we are really fortunate that we are able to send 2 faculty each year for these AAMC leadership seminars. It is an award, and you are sent for in-person, very intense seminar. I think it's over 3 or 4 days, and you are intensely trained on all elements of leadership, financial management, meeting monitoring, or executing a meeting, assessing a budget, how to negotiate for yourself, all facets that we may need some skill building. So prior to 2017, there was not a concerted effort to do this. We were able to establish a systematic process so that we have in place a standardized review that we actually evaluate all candidates. I get to contribute to that. It's exciting. We've seen an increase in the number of applicants that go up for this, and we encourage you to keep going for those. Anyone who has applied and not received it, when we're at the table, we're going, man, I really hope they go for this again next year. So, we are really committed to helping women move. The highest level of training is the Executive Leadership in Academic Medicine, prestigious award, and we've sent a number of faculty to that training. We actively put up a lot of people for awards in Phoenix. We've had people in the top 40 under 40, the Women Achievers in Arizona. The one that I'm missing here, the award is last year, Dr. Galatano actually received the one of the most influential women at University of Arizona. And so we nominated her for that award, and we are very tireless in putting people up for these awards because we want that recognition, and because we know with those recognition become opportunities. We have 3 core events at ComP, and I want you guys to take a look at all of these. Watch out for the messages where we notify you and advertise for these events. We've got a fall networking event, and we have a spring dinner. Those are our 2 major social events in the fall and spring. We have our fall event coming up, so keep an eye out for that. Those are fantastic. In the fall, it's a little more informal. It's networking. We bring everybody to the campus at ComP. This last year, we were incredibly successful. We had the highest number of male colleagues attend. Dr. Fallon is always one of our biggest supporters. And that was fantastic because the more we can get male colleagues to attend these events and bring the women here, the more we can have opportunities for networking and exposure. And we also use the opportunity to provide some degree of training that will benefit you in skill building. The spring dinner is a more formal event. We had ours this last June. We bring in a national speaker, a very highly regarded speaker, comes in and speaks on a particular topic that may be affecting women. And again, it's a great networking opportunity. We are a small campus, so despite how many people attend, the events are always manageable enough for a lot of interaction. We're working on our upcoming fall, and then our next spring. I think this year's is going to be even better. Also, anyone who attends one of our leadership seminars with the AAMC, that is one big event. Also, we ask that whatever they love the most at the leadership seminar, that they come back and they give a talk at COMP to sort of share the message. The first one that I attended, Dr. Herbs Kralovitz, she presented on the concept of sponsorship, and that was a really impactful message. We also hold workshops and seminars. So it's not just enough to provide opportunities for networking. We believe that in empowerment, and in empowerment, in order to empower, we have to provide you with information. We also have to provide you with skill building opportunities, right? Give you skills that are going to give you an upper hand and give you a little bit, put you in a better position. So we hold a lot of workshops and symposia. We had one this last spring that was on professional branding. It was a really deep dive into how to navigate and how to orient and how to leverage social media. How do you construct your message? 1, 2, 3. This is what you put in it. And this is how you write it. And this is what you do. And providing our faculty with those tools has been really, really positive. We had one that was on how to write letters of recommendation without gender bias. And the reason, there were a number of reasons behind this workshop, and a lot of them, but this one was just, if we're going to be asking our women faculty to be out there and putting up people, then we need to, how can you best write a nominating letter? How can you best write a letter of recommendation? How can you be very effective? So it's not the traditional, they're great, they're very effective. And also how to avoid common stereotypical language about women. They're very sweet. They're, you can always count on them, and sort of neutralize the language. We also have been holding a lot of successful book club meetings. These were really, really successful prior to the pandemic. We're working on how to integrate this in to this new hybrid atmosphere that we're in. But we've tackled, and we've gotten huge audiences at these events where we very openly discuss what the topics are covered in these books. And what's great about these events is it's a safe environment and people can feel comfortable and sharing, oh, I'm so irritated with this, so frustrated, and I don't know how to tackle it. And that really opens up the opportunity for discussion and change and mentorship. We bring in a lot of visiting professors, women leaders that can come in and provide advice and skills. I can't think of the one speaker who I really enjoyed. She's not here, listed here, but she's pretty well known, and it's the Pearls of Wisdom. And she is, Jennifer Hunt, and great pearls of wisdom of what she learned. What was great about those, it was like, oh my gosh, in these meetings, if they said this, this is how I would handle it. So really give us a lot of reasonable and helpful advice on how other people handled it and successfully climbed the ladder despite challenges and obstacles that were in front. We have put a hold on the WIMS happy hour. That has been a drop-in. And again, the pandemic interrupted that, and we're finding ways to invigorate it. We've received a lot of positive responses about our events at COMP, and it's made a really positive impact. We track all of our attendance so that we can see how successful we are. And we, the curve is steep, right? So we went to, moderate to, just, so we know our faculty are hungry and they're interested in this. And so we're really encouraged and excited by some of the comments that we hear from our women faculty that it's worthwhile. I think what is so satisfying for those of us on the committee is when we hear words and comments of, I felt welcome and I felt supported and I felt like I was really around like-minded people who could understand my struggles. And I think that that's a really important aspect of WIMS at COMP. How can institutions move the needle? How can COMP do it? How can other institutions do it? What is effective out there? And these slides are borrowed by my colleague, Dr. Herbs Kralovitz. Establish and organize effective recruitment, both internal and external. Right? Consider not just the external recruitment of potential talent, but also look internally to a lot of the women faculty that have this ambition and have the potential. Consider them, right? We need to groom from within and build up from within. I think CompE is going to be more successful the more we groom and build up from within. There needs to be accountability metrics, which is part of the reason for Stat WIMS. Gather data and monitor the progress of women at CompE. And having those accountability metrics in place is a way that allows us to track progress and see opportunities for improvement. We need more male leaders to sponsor women in your department. Seek out ways that you can put up a woman colleague into opportunities where they can get exposure, speaking events. And so that is something we need, what we call he for she's. We need a lot more he for she's within institutions. Close the confidence gap. I think that is something that we are doing effectively at CompE with WIMS, is that we work really hard and aggressively to engage in open discussion and open dialogue about the issues and seeing what are the common themes that we can tackle. Investigate gender pay gaps. This is an uncomfortable discussion. This is an uncomfortable area, but don't shy away from it. Open up that dialogue and not keep it in the drawer closed. The more women feel valued and appreciated and on level playing field to their male counterparts, the more we can, very importantly, retain our talent. Work-life design. For me, this is a very important element to my profession. And we have to encourage, and I encourage our leaders and at our institution to really foster and really emphasize how much we value work-life balance, especially if there is disproportionate burden on women for domestic responsibilities. The less pressure we feel, it brings down our tension tremendously when we're on site. And so that is something that's really important, that we'd like to see our leaders and institutions really foster an environment where it's okay at various stages to have work-life balance, and especially with families. The last one here is the leader, Dr. Travis, who leads at MD Anderson. She has this quote that if you can't see it, you can't be it. So put people in leadership roles and establish pipelines and establish strategies and policies that will provide those opportunities, like leadership recruitment efforts, making sure that you are pulling in enough applicants that provide a diverse representation to the patient population or the community that you're seeing. That by standardizing that, you can really minimize the influence of unconscious bias in how we evaluate applicants and how we interview them. The AMC puts out really valuable tools. It's a very extensive website. For those of you who have not been to AMC, the GWIMS website, I encourage you to go look for it at CompE. What WIMS has done, and I want you all to, again, I'm going to give my email address. Feel free to shoot me an email. What we did to help ensure accessibility to this information is, before Dr. Galatano left, she put together a very large slide deck and recorded the presentation. And she recorded and broke down all of the analysis of the data from the AMC GWIMS. And then we have it available on flash drives at CompE. So anybody who wants it, we can just give it to you. The point is that we've sifted through the data, we've analyzed, we've condensed it down into key messages, and we're saying it's available. Just ask us for it. We handed it out to everybody that attended the spring dinner. But for all of you that didn't attend the spring dinner, just contact us. We'll give it to you. That flash drive gives you all of the information you need to have and know to advocate for yourself. And that was, sort of her parting wish before she went on sabbatical was, I want to make sure this is accessible so that you don't have to go to the website sort of, is it this link? Is it this link? We've pulled it. We've got it. It's ready for you. So reach out and let us know if you want that. That takes us to the last couple of slides, but, and this is the only slide here, but chances are, many of you are underpaid compared to your male counterparts. And this is a pervasive problem in medicine. CompTIA is not protected from it, no colleges. And so we have to take a real commitment to stay on top of that and really commit to evaluating it regularly. Again, for addressing gender pay gap, the WIMS group really is pushing at the national level, especially double AMC, an expectation that institutions establish procedures and processes and accountability metrics showing that they are evaluating the gender pay gap and that they're not just checking the box, but that they're seriously tackling it to move the needle. And again, contact WIMS for resources. Like I said, we've got that flash drive. And that was a presentation that Dr. Galatano went over on salary equity for women in medicine. And it's a really great presentation. And so I encourage you guys to reach out to us to ask for that. We'd be happy to share it. That brings me to the end of the presentation. It was a real privilege to share this information with you on behalf of Dr. Hale and all of the women on WIMS. We are so impassioned to engage you guys, men and women, in our initiative, and we want you guys. So seek us out, ask for ways you can get involved, and we would welcome it. Here's my email address if you want to contact me.
Well, thank you so much. Many of you may know, but some of you may not know that September is Women in Medicine Month, which is a sign that this is, as you well described, this is an international problem where non-men are not treated with equity in all cases, and so we are very, very grateful for all of the hard work, of course, of the WIMS group. And the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here at our university, and of course through Banner. And it's been really amazing to see the efforts that have been put in have actually led to some outcomes, and we're not stopping anytime soon. So there's still so much more work to be done. My question actually comes because many in your audience today are trainees, students, residents, fellows, and very early career faculty. So I wonder if in addition to kind of, they might not even be aware of kind of the promotion idea. And so I wonder if you could just maybe speak directly to that part of our audience to describe some of the things that that might help them early on in their careers as they're building up what will be a career of hopefully great success.
Right. Yeah. And I can speak from personal experience on that. I think what's really critical in terms of leveling the playing field for female trainees is, we need to have more networking and more interaction that mirrors the sort of golf course conversations that go on from a lot of our male counterparts, right? So we need to create this, because what you do when you're doing that is you're building up a reputation. And this is really important because whenever you choose to go in academia, if you want to move the ranks, you have to have reputation and you have to have people that are going to be willing to advocate for you. So what is really critical is introducing yourself to people, networking, knowing who the key players are. And what I did when I went up for associate, and I'm preparing to do this for full, is starting to reach out to people to say, hey, what do you think? Where are my areas of weakness? Or what are some of the things that I need to be focusing on. What you do when you're having those conversations is you're getting people in your corner. Ideally, you're getting people in your corner, because when you go into academic medicine, as you apply for assistant and then associate and then full, you have to have letters of endorsement. And so the earlier you build those relationships, the easier it will be for you to get those letters of endorsement and those letters of support. And that's really critical, because, a portion of rank promotion is peer evaluation. And so I'd have to say, one of my disadvantages is I'm a real head down, put my head into the computer and I work, right? I really enjoy introverting, right? And so I have to force myself out of that and actively seek people out. So I would say that to women trainees, you've got to start doing that early. Have those sort of golf course conversations and start building up that back pocket of people that you can turn to. And with that comes a lot of research opportunities for manuscripts and whatnot. And that's, I think, obviously very important when you're going up for rank promotion.
So Pam, again, thank you so much. Really, really awesome. And as I think about this, from the he who's supposed to be supporting she perspective, a couple things that I want to ask you about in your data, with your data hat on. Is there a way, and do you have the data, and can we utilize it? We obviously have Emily as our vice chair of diversity, and that's a position that we want to fill, and we have a diversity champion network that we're creating in our divisions. But I have not collected or actually seen or used, from an accountability standpoint, data on the Department of Medicine and how we are doing and where our gaps are. Mm-hmm. And I would love for the department in a formal way to maybe interact with WIMS or stat WIMS, right, to say, we can all feel good about putting people in certain positions, but I think having data, right, that tells us what we're not really doing well will help us be much more effective in trying to close those gaps. So right, I'd love to maybe partner around that and see if we can drill down on data so we know where we're not doing what we should be doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And one of the things that I like to do with our data is, and I'd be happy to share it with you and anybody else who wants it, but I've analyzed the data in a systematic way so that there's like a blueprint, right? Like, okay, get the data and this is how you consolidate it and this is how you plot it, right? So that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Having somebody available to analyze your data, as you guys know in research, it's very hard to get access to somebody that can analyze your data. So in order to support that effort, we are trying to put in, I'm committed to sharing how I analyze the data so that you can recreate what I did, or you can talk with me and I could say, okay, well, this is what you need to look for. The other thing is it's real challenging to find the data, and knowing where to find the data is a really important key to opening that door. And that's only something we're happy to share so that it's not a red tape that then people shy away from doing because they don't know how to access it. All right, we have some comments here. Thank you. I've got a question. Do you know any tools to help women in medicine identify that inequity is causing their burnout? Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know of any tools, but I would have to look to the literature to see if somebody's analyzed that. I do know there is one group that is going to be interested in tackling this question, and I've made myself available if they wanted help with the data. And so I think that's an important question. We have another one here. Yes, I'd be happy to share this slide deck. And again, keep in mind, if you guys want our standard presentations that Dr. Galatano put together and the resources that we want to share, just reach out to us and we can give them to you. And we'd be happy to share this freely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there any discussion about pay gaps for women when universities adopt a rank adjusted pay scale? I don't know about those discussions. We hope that those are at play. See, we've got another great question. The minority tax of women and underrepresented minorities being burdened with excessive service responsibilities that then takes away from their ability to generate grants and publications. One aspect, so the thoughts that we have on this at WIMS is, and we do this in some of our workshops and symposia, how do you navigate those discussions, right? How do you navigate those discussions and advocate for yourself? Again, I encourage you to reach out to us. I think we're at the top of the hour.
We are. We'll let Dr. Milas, who has her hand raised, ask the final question of the day. Go ahead. Yep.
Dr. Milas?
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Dr. Garcia Filion. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. I'm the token surgeon invited to, not the only one, but I enjoy participating in the Department of Medicine grand rounds because they're fabulous. And I want to tell you, this is really excellent work in a very, very short amount of time, and probably too few people conducting the work. So I just wanted to say thank you for what you're doing and keep it up. The question that I had is the following. How can Dr. Mallon, how can Dr. Fallon, how can our chair, Dr. Soper, echo the need for a chief academic officer to banner or to be at BUMCP in the C-suite? I know we have executive titles of various leaders that were just announced yesterday, but the gap that I have witnessed missing is data of your kind literally being in front of the decision makers on a regular basis. On a regular basis, you have a standing appointment with those leaders once a month. Maybe you already have, and forgive me if I don't know that, but that is where the gap will be closed. You can send 1 million people to get skills that they actually have more than people who are already in those roles sometimes. But until you get in front to echo the need, it will be, it will still be 20 years to get the 20%.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think what you're suggesting is, the accountability metrics. What I would like to see is, standing agenda items that just, regular reporting on the status of women within the department, within the division, at Banner, at CompE. And, the more you see it and the more you're aware of it, I think it drives accountability. At CompE, what we've been able to do is share this data and salary equity data at meetings for all deans, and trying to get a place on the agenda at very significant meetings to get it in their faces and say, this is what's going on. This is what we need from you. And it would be great if that could be, a steady standing item on a meeting. And I'm optimistic that as institutions take on efforts for diversity and inclusion, because this is becoming such an important topic, that hopefully that will shepherd in normalizing discussions about this data so that we can bring them in. What we'd like to see is getting women in these leadership roles, and then they can help champion our efforts. I don't know much about Banner, but that would be my insight.